Yo, how's it going everybody? You got Sketch here and welcome back to the channel. On this episode we're looking at an entry of the Strider series that was the unofficial sequel to the original arcade coin-op, and this also had a fair portion of Capcom staff who also developed the original game on the project, and is certainly a ride of a hack and slash platformer. We're checking out Osman, or Cannon Dancer in the PAL and Japanese region, developed by Corp and United Games Entertainment, and published by Atlas for the Japanese arcade region, releasing in 1996. While this never got a home port on release, it has since been re-released digitally for the Switch, PS4 and 5, Xbox One and Series consoles, and physically through strictly limited games in 2023. This has a similar feel to the original Strider and sets up a wild and at times psychedelic trip with its visuals and environments. Though before banging on too much more, let's check out the story. In a dystopian future, Earth is under control by a central federal government, and the sorceress Abdullah craves world domination. As government corruption and economic collapse lay in the wake of their appearance, Jack Liaison enlists Kieran, a martial arts master of the Techie unit. Kieran sets out on a journey to confront Abdullah and the opposing forces of government that turn their back on society. You've got your fist and feet against an army. Prepare yourself for a fight to save the planet. Gameplay wise, you've got a 2D hack and slash where you'll kick, punch, and slide through the opposition, battling across 6 stages leading up to Abdullah. If you're familiar with how Strider controls, this will feel very similar, being able to attack as fast as you can press the buttons, and being able to cling to walls and ceilings. You can also get shadows of yourself, much like how you could have the mechanical options or the cyborg tiger in Strider. These upgrades let you get up to 3 shadows, and this is similar to Ninja Gaiden 2 and 3 and Ninja Spirit, letting you temporarily keep your familiars in place depending on your movement. This allows you to lay down damage from a distance since your shadows take no damage and stay fixed on enemies, shredding them to pieces. However, if you get hit, you lose 1 shadow, and if you're in the air and time it just right, you can powerbomb enemies from the air to the ground, and these are satisfying to pull off in the heat of battle. You've got 4 upgrades you can grab throughout stages, being life up, life restore, attack upgrades, and your shadow upgrade. You've also got a screen clearing attack that's also similar to Capcom Strider 2, where you'll drop kick around the screen, stomping everything and inflicting major damage on bosses. Once you've got full upgrades, you can serve up that work. Only catch is, screen clear attacks don't refill after you lose a life. You drop into the Persian Gulf and make your way across the seas and deserts as the story unfolds. In between each stage, a cutscene will fill in the narrative as you make your way to Abdullah, which strings each section together as you progress through each day's mission. Cutscenes will flow back into the gameplay without much downtime, so this is a neat way to go about an established trait in the franchise. Each area will have various environmental elements like jewels that fling you upwards and around the stage, and numerous hazards. Besides enemy soldiers, you'll face a variety of robots, flying soldiers that resemble Solo, tigers, and even vehicles that got it out for you here. You've also got a lot of zero gravity style moments like on the battleship Balrog, and once you have the controls and agility dialed in, you'll be one of the most nimble assassins on the planet. Mid and main boss encounters will test your mettle as you boot them to the moon, and these encounters will come in a variety of sized enemies, and each battle will be challenging. Main bosses will often dart around the screen quickly, so keeping up with where your enemy is on screen will often be your best companion. Graphics wise, Osman is truly something else and was developed on the simple 156 arcade hardware made by Data East. Koichi Yatsui is also at the helm as director, who also directed the Strider arcade coin-op as well. He's quoted as wanting to make a successor to the series, and supposedly even uses the game as a vehicle to mock his experiences at Capcom, interestingly enough. You get some sick reimagined sections of Strider, and what feels like playing it on several hits of acid with its bright colors and hyper-detailed backgrounds. The sheer amount of stuff packed into each level is kind of insane. They all go by in a blink though, since you'll be too busy kicking everything into the stratosphere. Oh, I almost forgot to mention there's also a fair bit more gory than Strider 1 or 2, with a healthy dose of arterial spray every so often. Stages have a lot of verticality, and some even have branching paths letting you take the high or low road to kick through your ops. Besides the enemies, there's often tons of hazards like trucks and vehicles that try to plow into you, along with laser barriers that rotate like lightsabers. Environments are teeming with detail, and each stage has its own theme and look, from the deserts to the high siege, which is an awesome segment that feels like the surfing section from Shinobi 3. There's also a fair amount of cutscenes that lace the story together, showing you the beginnings of Liaison contacting Kieran about the mission, then the deceit as Kieran is double-crossed. I assure you this is not a major spoiler since it happens within the first 10 or so minutes of the playthrough, and it keeps that same feel of the Strider interlude cutscenes. Where these differ is that the splash character art comes on screen in part while the sprites are still doing things in the background, and it's cool to see an innovation on the original idea and having 2 angles as the story unfolds. Their narrative is also pretty bonkers, but very entertaining as it progresses. Bosses also have splash images before starting encounters and once defeated, and these are pretty great. Boss cutscenes get more wild as the game goes on, and by the end, the story has gotten rather interesting. The scenes leading up to Abdullah legit feel like the game slipped some psychedelics into the coding, and they look pretty sick. You also get some really cool ways of scrolling text in cutscenes, stage clears, and the credits, and while these are small details, it all has a definitive style to it. Sound-wise, Osman is slapping with a unique soundtrack soundtrack composed by Tagusaku, who is credited as Aoki-san here, and these tunes are all over the shop. The score has a big vibe of Arabia and Indonesia, and what's even more wild is that the soundtrack would be their last composition in a professional sense, but this has got some jams in there. While Strider had tunes that were a bit all over the place, Osman has a centralized feel that's topped off with a dystopian cyberpunk aesthetic. Tunes got a fair amount of range from the bombastic backdrop to battles, to the ominous ethereal chorus lines where you spiral through zero gravity or ascend to orbit on a sword. Yes, you heard that part correctly. Come to think of it, at times the music reminds me of 90s anime like Akira or the first Project Eiko film. Hearing the combination of influences is truly something, and looking at it side by side to Capcom's Strider 2, it's interesting to see just how different in tone these both really are. Sound effects are also nice and crispy here when there's typically a lot of stuff going on amidst the action. The audio is reminiscent of kung fu films where the power of your movement breaks the sound barrier and the impacts resonate on the other side of the world. When enemies aren't being kicked to bits, explosions from mechanical enemies all have varying levels of boom. While there's no voice dialogue, there's some speech bites while attacking and in some of the music. Cannon Dancer Osman is an awesome spiritual follow-up to Strider and is an absolute ride of a game to play through. While it was rare to see it in arcades when it was new, it's a beyond solid entry in the series lexicon. It would have been great to see a home console port of this back in the day, but having it available on modern consoles now is still pretty sick. Fans of the Strider series will take to this right away since their gameplay is similar and the action stays dialed up from the rip. It's also an interesting contrast of styles which weaves a lot of new concepts and design techniques into. Cannon Dancer Osman gets an 8 out of 10 and comes highly recommended to fans of action platformers and fans of the Strider series, considering this is often regarded as the official, unofficial sequel. It's an experience with its story and action set pieces coupled with a challenging game to boot. The action never lets up, and while you can clear the game relatively fast, it's got a lot to see. The reissue comes with both regional releases and dip switch settings where you can change the gameplay parameters as you wish. If you're into games like this, it's definitely worth a look and is available on the Xbox One and Series consoles, PS4 and 5, and Nintendo Switch. Considering we've discussed a fair bit of the Strider franchise so far, it may be time to revisit the other unofficial sequel that even Capcom often denies exists, though we'll get to that soon enough. And if you made it this far into the video, I thank you so much for watching. If you find these videos helpful, that's awesome. I'm glad you use it as a resource. Check back often, we'll have more reviews and commentaries come up in the near future. But until then, take it easy and stay safe out there. I'll see you on the next one.